Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, is planning to ramp up his investment game in the United States over the next 4 years. We're talking big money, $600 billion. And if the stars align, the figure could go higher.
That Saudi Arabia will be investing at least $600 billion in America, but I'll be asking the Crown Prince, who's a fantastic guy, to round it out to around $1 trillion. I think they'll do that because we've been very good to them. And I'm also going to ask Saudi Arabia and OPEC to bring down the cost of oil. You got to bring it down, which frankly, I'm surprised they didn't do before the election. That didn't show a lot of love.
Now, before you start imagining that this cash is going towards opening up more Wahhabi mosques and madrasas, fear not. The money's likely to land in a cooler place like artificial intelligence, because let's be honest, Saudi Arabia could use a little upgrade in the intelligence department.
But I gave them, as Miriam said, Golan Heights. I gave them the Abraham Accords, which is amazing. Nobody thought that was possible.
What you need to know is Trump is the most pro-Israel president in US history. He will do whatever it takes to support and protect Israel. And all of this love between Trump and Saudi Arabia looks like it could lead to some serious normalization between Saudi Arabia and Israel. Don't forget, Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, who I call the baby Antichrist or baby Dajjal, has an investment fund which the Saudis invest heavily in. The investment fund also funds illegal settlements in the West Bank of Palestine. The fund is called Affinity Group. Look it up. The relationship between Trump and the Saudis is pretty close. And it's probably the most closest one ever if you compare it with previous presidents.
Murdered and dismembered. And I believe in the order of the Crown Prince. And I would make it very clear, we were not going to, in fact, sell more weapons to them. We were going to, in fact, make them pay the price and make them, in fact, the pariah that they are.
If you remember, when Biden came into office, he wasn't exactly best friends forever with the Saudis. But after the whole Russia-Ukraine conflict kicked off in 2022, Biden was like, hey, Saudi Arabia, can you pump more oil for me and lower the prices? Saudi Arabia wasn't really feeling it though back then. Not only did they not increase oil production, but Biden himself flew over to Saudi Arabia and nothing happened. The Saudis did not budge, and now Trump is asking for the same.
And OPEC to bring down the cost of oil. You got to bring it down.
So far, the Saudis haven't agreed. Reason is, it would of course upset Russia. Russia right now is making a lot of money out of oil and funding the war in Ukraine. So it might take a little more from Trump to appease the Saudis. Trump hasn't signed a security treaty with the Saudis yet, and he hasn't really commented on Saudi Arabia's nuclear program. And the Saudis aren't really getting the top-notch American weapons. So for now, in terms of oil production, it's a no from Saudi Arabia. But things can change.
To all of Israel's friends in the Middle East, those who are with us today and those who will join us tomorrow, I say, Assalamu alaikum. Peace unto thee. Shalom.
Trump, of course, wants to continue his Abraham Accord initiatives, the deal he brokered in his first term that normalized relations between Israel and several Arab nations. Now, normalizing ties between Saudi Arabia and Israel is a goal that's been on US presidential bucket list for decades. Not only that, Israel's been waiting for this moment, and even Netanyahu has been dropping hints that he's likely to talk to Saudi Arabia and normalize ties.
Give me a sense of what you would be able to do or to give to normalize a relationship with Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia, I think, is one of the exceptional things that tells you why I'm very optimistic about Israel. Really one of two reasons, one of two main reasons. One is that, well, I'll start with Saudi Arabia, but then I'll get with the other one.
No.
I think that we are about to witness a pivot of history. Maybe. I can't guarantee that it'll happen. But first there is an economic corridor of energy, transport, and communications that naturally goes through our geography, from the Arabian Peninsula, from Asia to the Arabian Peninsula to Europe. We're going to realize that. Yeah. And by the way, my sense is we're going to realize that despite whether we have formal peace or not.
But of course, Saudi Arabia is kind of playing hard to get. The conflict in Gaza forced the Saudis to stick with a position, and that is to support a Palestinian state. So the Saudis have made it clear they're not going to negotiate nor sign any deals with Israel prior to any Palestinian state. And the conflict in Gaza has really put pressure on Saudi Arabia because the Saudis need to keep the Muslim world happy and they can't throw the Palestinians under the bus. But Netanyahu, he's going to be a tough cookie to deal with because this guy is not backing down. He doesn't believe in a Palestinian state nor a Palestinian people. So any negotiations with Trump pushing for the Abraham Accords with Saudi Arabia is going to be pretty tough. But I think Saudi Arabia will do it. I mean, let's face it, they have a secret relationship behind closed doors. It's not out in open public at the moment. I think when Saudi Arabia eventually agrees to the Abraham Accords and signs a deal, a peace treaty with Israel, other Muslim nations, Arab nations and Muslim nations across the globe will follow suit. We're likely to see the Wahhabi mullahs, of course, quote hadiths about peace all of a sudden and how they can export Wahhabism, do dawah to Israel. But let's face it, Israelis already practice Wahhabism. It's called Zionism out there, so it's nothing new. And through the Abraham Accords, Israel is going to rule the Middle East. I say Israel will rule through the Abraham Accords due to looking at some countries who've signed the deal. You see, Bahrain, Morocco, the United Arab Emirates, they've signed a deal with the Israelis, but they did nothing to prevent the demolition and eviction of Palestinians from their homes, or to address the record-breaking settlement expansions and settler violence across the West Bank. You see, these countries that have already signed the Abraham Accords have done nothing. They have done nothing to influence Israel. Peace with Israel is just on paper. Nothing more, nothing less. Israel and America will continue to deceive the Arabs of the Middle East. Thanks for listening to the Independent Islamic Republic. Assalamu alaikum. Have a wonderful night.
If Saudi Arabia wanted to buy another 450 or 500, we'll up it for all the inflation.
You can push Israel and Saudi Arabia to normalize relations.
I know they got to push them. I think it's going to happen, but maybe not quite yet. But they'll end up being in the Accords, the Abraham Accords. I think Saudi Arabia will end up being in the Abraham Accords.
This year?
Could be, but soon. Not in a very.
بقرة الحلوب لكثرة ما حلبوها بات ضرعها يؤلمها يوجعها. حلوب بكل شدة. القبضة الترامبية هذا للحلب قبضة شديدة جدا. كيف ملكهم كان ينظر بعين الانكسار إلى ترامب يوم زار السعودية. يعني نأسى لحال سلمان، يقول بعين هكذا نظرة انكسار أمام ترامب، ويجبر نفسه ويجهد نفسه ليقوم ليرقص له، وهو أحيانا يصلي لله من قعود، بينما يجبر نفسه أن ينهض ليرقص لترامب من قيام. هذه حالة عجيبة.
And I love the King Solomon, but I said, King, we're protecting you. You might not be there for 2 weeks without us. You have to pay for your military.